And although there are some who would say that the doctors have not had adequate input into policies and decision making, I think that if you go back and if you could see on a day-to-day operational basis that they've had far more input than they themselves are aware of in many instances. However, very positive steps have been taken by our Board of Managers working with the medical school and with our medical staff to see if we can't better improve our channels of communications.
Well, Alan, I honestly can say that I'm more optimistic about our future relationship today than I've been at any time since I've been here at Southwestern now, some 7 years. I believe that we have a better understanding of the mutual problems of the two institutions with improved communication, so that despite the problems presently confronting us, I'm really quite optimistic about the future. There are many things that we feel can be done and hopefully will be done to upgrade the quality of care for the patients at Parkland. I'd rather not be specific about some of these because we will be discussing some of these in the Joint Conference Committee, and presumably the consultants group that will come in that's being appointed, I presume, at the present time by the Citizens Committee. They will be looking into these, and I think that our position will be made clear after we have input from these other sources.
Before we examine this situation more closely, it might be helpful to explain briefly what each institution is and their relationship. 20 years ago, Parkland Hospital was supported and operated by both the city and county governments. Under this system, the city resident was paying a city tax and a county tax to run the hospital. In order to equalize the tax burden and operate the hospital more efficiently, the citizens of Dallas County voted in December of 1954 to create the Dallas County Hospital District, which includes Parkland and Woodlawn. The district's financial support comes from a levy on taxable property, which will reach its maximum rate this year, approximately $7 for a home valued at $20,000. A 7-member board of hospital managers, appointed by and answerable to the county commissioners, controls the district. The board, in turn, appoints the administrator to supervise its daily activities. The major objective of the hospital district is to provide care to the indigent people of Dallas County, although Parkland does treat patients who can afford to pay. This is where the relationship between Parkland and Southwestern Medical School begins. They are both located on Harry Hines Boulevard in a multi-million-dollar medical complex with corridors leading from one institution to the other. Parkland is a teaching hospital for the school, with a legal contract defining this association. Many of the hospital's doctors, as well as the chiefs of the medical services, are faculty members from Southwestern. The Parkland House staff of interns and residents, although not directly affiliated with the school, train under these same faculty members. Medical students from Southwestern also get their clinical experience at the hospital. There's no question that the two institutions need each other. The hospital needs physicians, and the school needs people and a place to give its students practical experience. Southwestern Medical School is located on Harry Hines Boulevard, adjacent to Parkland Hospital. Founded in 1943 as a small wartime medical college, the school today is part of the University of Texas Health Science Center at Dallas, which also includes the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences and the School of Allied Health Sciences. Now in the middle of a $40 million building program, the medical complex expects to house 1,500 students by 1980, 800 of whom will be medical students. The program will essentially double the size of Southwestern alone. Graduates of the school have done extremely well in competitive national examinations, ranking at or near the top for the past 5 years. According to school officials, at least 1/3 of the new physicians entering practice in the Dallas-Fort Worth area are graduates of Southwestern. And many local specialists have trained at Parkland or other institutions allied with the school. In addition to the training of young doctors and the treatment of patients, the medical school conducts a variety of research projects which often affect the care delivered not only to local residents but to the sick throughout the world. And perhaps it's this striving for academic excellence and a medical cosmopolitanism in a highly competitive marketplace which brings the school into conflict with the parochial Dallas County Hospital District. Whether or not this is part of the problem, the school plays a vital role right here in the Dallas community.
Wherever there's a medical school, the standard of health care available to the people who live in this community is much higher. And there are, some common sense, compelling reasons why this is so. Because education is the main business of a school, it goes on all the time, and it involves medical students, graduate students, allied health students, and technologists, and so forth. But also, it involves the training of physicians who graduated from medical school at the house staff level. And in the recent past, perhaps as importantly as any other, there's an intensive program of continuing education for practicing physicians to enable the already trained physician to keep up with the rapid progress in his own field.
One doctor who benefits from the presence of the medical school is Charles Max Cole, a general surgeon in private practice who received his training at Parkland Hospital.
I think we can look over your laboratory tests and discuss it with you in a moment.
Fine, thank you.
It creates a scientific environment that is attractive to not only the students and the specialists, which it trains, but to many other physicians and specialists from other areas who will come here. And Southwestern carries on seminars, postgraduate teaching programs, weekly teaching conferences, which afford an opportunity for the practicing physician to keep abreast of the current developments in his field. There's less excuse for a physician in our community to be uninformed about a new treatment process. I could give a brief example. Once in a great while, I will have a patient who will present a medical condition which will be extremely rare to me, one that I've not encountered, we'll say, in a number of years. I have available through Southwestern Medical School one or more consultants immediately by telephone, personal conversation, personal visit to the school, and I can find someone who not only knows about this condition, but is abreast of the current developments in it and the current treatment for it, and if this be needed, he is willing to participate in the care of the patient. And we utilize them a great deal in this way, the staff man.
And then, just any number of times I've had to go out there, and the nurses, most of them, are just really ugly. But the aides and the doctors, are very nice. And if you are confined, then you get, nice nurses for your particular floor. But they let the people, most of the time. Now, when I was out there for my surgery, there was a man in the adjoining room that was in tremendous pain. And he would scream all night long, and they wouldn't give him anything to quiet him. But the next day when the doctor would come on, immediately they would give him his medication, and he would sleep all day. Well, that would keep everybody else up all night. Because, they go to Parkland unless I just have to, because I really don't like the services and the long wait that you have to, do out there. And I don't like bailiff services either, because they have to, so much red tape. They have the
Parkland, especially when they go to the clinic, they needed somebody to go with the interpreter to go to help them. The work in the Parkland is very good. There's the only problem with thing they have. We need people to help these people that don't speak English.
Do people I ever asked for anywhere that good? Nurses, doctors, and all of them.
Helpers. Taking him to intensive care, and they didn't even take time to put him on the stretchers or anything. He got bad so fast, they just rolled his bed. They went in a run. They didn't walk and push easy. They went in a run.
2 or 3 of them was holding jugs of different things with needles in him, one with blood, and away they went. And I didn't, not just one, but a bunch.
One of them ain't there right to hand is another right close and understand his business. And they know what they're doing out there. One of the best equipped hospitals in Texas.
The health care given a patient at Parkland is adequate. I think that in a care given a critically ill patient at Parkland is excellent.
In teaching hospitals, the likes of Parkland, when the volume of patients that's taken care of is considered, and when the loss of individuality that occurs is considered. And this has unfortunately been one of the necessary concomitants of taking care of a large population. And appointments are not given, and the patients sometimes show up. I know in one particular clinic, patients are seen 8 hours of the day, and all of them are given 8 o'clock appointments. And those people have to wait outside for that care. On the other side of the coin is the fact that attempts have been made to give appointments, and as you can readily understand, I think efficiency of the use of physician manpower is lost when the physicians are standing around because of the large number of patients that don't show up. As far as the loss of some of the personal aspects, I think once the patient enters the hospital, this becomes much less of a problem. It's especially a problem.
Looks at the outpatient clinics, we see probably too many patients. We see more patients there than we would like to deliver adequate care. Not adequate care, good care. If we look at the emergency room, there are times when it is very busy, and unless you're critically ill, you're not going to get seen for a while. And that goes for the inpatient wards too. If someone is dying, they're of course going to get more attention than someone that isn't. As far as the equipment goes, some places are a little bit short, but most of the equipment is readily accessible.
Take care of a patient and to frequently sit up with them all night and to take care of them for weeks on end, and then see them have to go down to x-ray and wait for 3 or 4 hours for an x-ray procedure while they remain in the hall when they've been delivered acute care, or to even worse in the intensive care units to call for a portable x-ray in an emergency situation and have to wait an hour or so for this x-ray. Perhaps I'm emphasizing a little bit too much some of the problems that we've had, but I think that becomes significant, and those are the things that make the physicians want to pull their hair out when they're using their physical and emotional and intellectual ability to its utmost, and then something simple and physical and mechanical causes a breakdown in the system. Whether the patient suffers from that is debatable. I think probably for the most part they don't. I think it's well made up for by the quality of care and the acute attention they're given. The fact that there's physicians on this in this hospital are not cared for by medical students. People in this hospital are cared for by licensed physicians or physicians that have their doctor's degree in medicine. If you're talking about medical students do on patients is not directly involved in decision making with their care, and I think that's the important aspect of it. Indeed, a medical student might take a patient's blood pressure or might draw blood from him. Indeed, will take a history and physical from him because this is his way of gaining experience in how illness presents itself. But as far as making a decision is concerned, most of the decisions are made primarily by the interns and residents, both of whom are licensed physicians and both of whom are well trained in the particular field in which they're endeavoring to gain further experience. And again, even the resident who generally supervises care on the ward at the lowest level has a staff man over him who is supervising care, and he's from the medical school and is, in most cases, an expert in his particular field of interest. And
medical care at the hospital be improved?
That's a very difficult question to answer, but I think what it really boils down to in any large institution like Parkland, where there is 1,000 odd employees, a large group of doctors and administration who has to deal with the county commissioners, is in some way improving the communications amongst that group. I think basically that we all want the same thing, and that is to improve the care and the quality of medical care. And as it has been, we have in the past had a difficult time in communicating with one another our problems. Obviously,
We have been able to afford these services to the people who were in that category who came to our facilities for treatment. However, because of the numbers involved and because of the large amounts of money that is involved at the present time, we are having to study the situation very closely. And those cases which are non-emergency cases, or the patients who can be referred to other institutions, we're trying to see that they are referred, particularly where there are facilities back in their home community.
That county to be responsible for the payment of the hospital bills in the receiving county, which as relates to us, of course, would be Dallas County or Parkland Hospital. It would provide the machinery judicially by which Dallas County or the Dallas County Hospital District could pay, or I'm sorry, could file suit if necessary against the county of residence of an indigent person who was required or who required hospital care in Dallas County. And Forwarding County is obliged by law to make the payment. They will make the payment. It would be just like forwarding them a statement. They will simply not defend it because there would be no defense. And so they will make the payment. And it's just a method of equitably distributing the cost of health care among actually the recipients of the health care. And any person can come to Dallas County and insist upon it.
When the state is going to have to share its responsibility for that school out there, the local taxpayers cannot continue to pick up what the state should be doing.
What is going to happen now? This morning's action put
some help with our committee, because we're still basically represent experience in certain backgrounds, but we need some professional help too. We're presently looking at people that might render professional help to us.
Who will finance?
Well, we plan to ask foundations and people like that, this being a community interest matter, to fund us. There are a lot of people in it several months. We certainly are hopeful to get on it, and we're already in it, spent a lot of hours on it already, and I hope we'll be underway towards our work product very shortly, but I think it will take several months, my estimate. The most complex things, I think, for the primary teaching institutions in the medical school are the outside sort of constraints: federal funding, state funding, the future of national health programs. All these things are important, and these are the things that I think all the parties are interested in trying to look ahead and see what kind of guidelines, what kind of futures we have in these areas. And that's what we're looking at.
Now there are at least 3 very significant pieces of legislation, health legislation. The first of these is probably what we would call national health insurance. And national health insurance is to be a mechanism that will provide a partnership between the employer, the employee, and government in ensuring that there is universal coverage of all of our citizens, and that through this policy that everyone will have equal access to health care regardless of their financial means or their geographic location. Is related to the development of what are called health maintenance organizations, or called HMOs. Now, health maintenance organizations is an organizational way of providing comprehensive care to a patient, which involves, again, the mechanism of prepayment, which you pay in. Then the organizational structure of a health maintenance organization, that they will be able to provide more comprehensive health care, which will essentially deal with 2 characteristics. One, that there will be more preventive care, and by the organized arrangement of health care that they. Okay, a very significant piece of legislation that is now coming into being is called Professional Standards Review Organization, or PSRO. Now, the PSRO is an effort to look at the quality of health care that's being provided to the patient. It includes that physicians will come together through an organizational arrangement and provide what is called peer review, physicians looking at other physicians, to determine whether the quality of care that they're giving as individual physicians is the appropriate care required for that particular diagnosis for the patient. It is also hoped that through that peer review, that they will also be able, for instance, cut down the number of unnecessary admissions into hospitals. And by doing that, of course, again, reduce the cost of delivering health care. So those are, in summary, a very brief summary of the three significant pieces of legislation which will have a great impact on the future of healthcare delivery.
For instance, how will something like national health insurance affect hospitals which would cater to like an indigent population?
To the extent that a low-income population will now be covered by some form of national health insurance, then that low-income person will, of course, now have a choice of going to any physician and or any hospital of his choosing. And so that will then change the nature of our indigent care hospitals. They, in turn, will become a more full community-oriented hospital and providing services to all of the people in the community. So it will change, for instance, the financial arrangement of these special kinds of hospitals, such as John Peter Smith Hospital in Tarrant County or Parkland Hospital in Dallas. They now receive special county tax support. Under national health insurance, they may no longer require any county tax support.
Do you presume, as I think your question presumes, that national health insurance would come to encompass all of the medical care of all patients? And I think it is true that the Parkland, number of patients at Parkland would diminish. And this would, I think, make it necessary for Parkland to upgrade its facilities for patient care. And when it does so, I think it will continue to draw its share of the patient load.
Because of our physical continuity between the medical school and Parkland, we would hope that for the indefinite future that we would have a very close tie with that hospital, and we would be able to continue to attract patients into that hospital after they're no longer indigents as we presently know them, at least where the county has the responsibility for providing care for these indigents. As the fiscal responsibility shifts from the county to the federal government, presumably, then we would hope through one way or another the hospital could be made sufficiently attractive that the patients now coming there would continue to come in the future. And indeed, we would hope that some patients who are not coming there at the present time might well come in the future. But this is one of the things that obviously will have to be looked into very carefully by both the medical school and particularly by the county government who has the responsibility for operating the hospital, and how they will.
Special plans for the hospital when national health insurance arrives and people can go anywhere they choose.
This is a problem and a question that's on everybody's lips at the present time. In fact, today at our board meeting we were discussing, and one of the things that the board was concerned about and discussing were the plans for the building program and when we finish the building program, because we do have a very positive program of upgrading the aesthetics of our institution, as well as trying to improve our services and where it's possible to expand our services within the restrictions of the financial base which we have to operate from. Specifically